ama sapenin tunilha khakdong lam hil webinar som gup channa phada cha a bolsom ki thayai zalwin pathin heta bangdam nai piu hi thang ba we tunilha it topic diu hi. Can Christian theology provide an ethical foundation for socio-economic life? Tiahin speaker ay pan pwede wahila Mr. Son Colin mate ama ahezong tamta umuhitin hello lai inom ka ule tulad tua hi PhD research scholar hin IIT Mumbai Philosophy of Science Department na abolahin inam sungwa ang tha kinapi ta khat heti hi mundang dang webinar dang ho panana na hole participate in the ball ho ko na jong tampi in head du kata sanin tunila ama to phat iman khom thei du hi ama sapenin lim na le achunga ki pat thu sewe chula khangdong lam hil program ho inzuya tunil ha azong thanom ta mi pangkhom dinga ti ki khop khom kit thei zalun na bon chu chungwa ki pa thu ka sei ta gomin limna kan bolwe ipi hile phar ho zo se pathera nga ki wop sana nei tin chula aban chal ding anagelu hite taute lungsen na dim kapau hinjing pathin hinko damna bitna nei pe wa kalunggel ngai tu te ho phade cha a che thajing the nei koi zalun ka ke pa vitamin ka thang ba we tu ni la in che khangdong lam hin webinar ka bolo som guk chan me na phade cha in bon ki thading in kom tawin speaker ding pa yong nang man na din pi a sela ka man cha de technology te hayong boina la hela phade cha ka phat te ka zo thei ne gun na pi na ngai jin na nga ka tawun chule tu ni la ka ke ho lim na diu te ho hi ta sa le thagawa ka hindi thei na diu le chule kamason be thei nau a hi thei ne dingin ka ke ho lim na di te ho phat thei nei bu pe wa chule speaker ding pa jong nang man pi din pintin kapakai Jesu Krista menin na ka tawe amen tunil ha i topico isai ma bangun can Christian theology provide an ethical foundation for socio-economic life tiahin ipitit lam dola resource person pa in present ahin bolam ti hi anangai khom hitin hichi inangai na ding wa ilunggelo wa foundation iti diuham ina kido thei ding chu Christian khadin corruption abol thei di ham ti ho ta bang he ai lo le isum la pai holna wa kani kanja ai lo le drugs ti ho izo wa sukla pai hol ho hi pathen lung hai na to kitu hinam ai lo le in chen sim na how do na ding hi phot le bol thei jo se bol thei heta igel wam ti ho ta bang lungel nei puma hin hichi tunil ha season hi anangai le han hicha ama holim na ko na thil tampi het chit be nom le do be nom chule lungel achai na rang le se khom thei ding tampi om ding kata sanin tu hin ipitilam dola present han bolam ti tunha speaker ding Mr. Son Colin mate ama phat ipitaw ne he
Luôn ki mu thayam screen so
ki mu thai
ki mu thai na so na
ki mu thai
okay Spainin không don lam here ngong to lam kai ho chunga pa to ka sein to le ito bang webinar na hin zui peo hi scholar tata, theologian tata, dang tata, hebe natam ta kinayin. No ho chunga pa tu ka sen so let me pi on je kom do si chunga lim na long pe nei nei. Zani kai mut lai ta in lun loi pa lunin on and bolin. Kay chun KSO Mumbai president ki hiya so KSO general head ko lang ako na ko ka ha muzile. KSO general head ko lang ako na tuhong ke se ham tia so sapi ko lim hon le Fox tingin na jugong intile surprise te azania so kai mut ban lai ta hiya so yes kanaki kha le kong kyo hon le khang don lam hi lo hi lam chu kai in he don hi le yes akti pha na su no ti mo ti pe lo hin na ai khang don lam hi lo atil ke se ho hi ha alien thei tain ne ka so ti gu hin nga hi rong le yes akti pha na su amas pe na su science and religion tu langai ho lim ding ti su ke ni kana ki ho la on chu hi rong le pha ki bitin zia su Christian philosophy or theology le socio-economic ethics or socio-economic life di ho hi never cut article ke man ka zo khong khama kan zi ho kan sim ho ya ka bu kan sim ho so ga po thein ong min na hi le chio su ki sei han tia su science and religion su ta nga tu chio hi focus ke bo han tu la ya yo society demon tu ya ti pa hi kan han hi in ipi hi le Again, Christian theology provide the ethical foundation for socio-economic life, reflecting on the missiological state of cookie stars and society. Ipalsu iholim ningo ahi. Itchasun ipat masangowin quite nikat kahin say numin. As long as poverty, injustice, and gross inequality exist in our world, none of us can truly rest. Nelson Mandela, former president of South Africa, ama say nahi. Man has created new worlds of language, of music, of poetry, of sciences, and the most important of this is the wall of moral demands, moral realm for equality, for freedom, and for helping the weak. Let Sir Karl Popper, ama philosopher of science, min ta ahin ahi. Aman anamud otum diding philosophy of science. Science aman anasim na ko nasu. Science sintin, politics sintin, economics sintin, social sciences ng mga hitin hintijong le. Ethics umlowa lehin. Ichi lampia no less hosu akimang kirteye. Yes umahin. It's all si chung nasu ethics bahi apoy mo penet. Ati nahi. Okay. It also he English power ka hiya so by language ho power English so mix in boarding hi. Ancient historicals and philosophicals or religious backgrounds of the relationship between socio-economic teachings and ethical system. Ancient philosophical hong sun socio-economic teaching like ethical system so ana combine jing hi na hi. It's pen hi khang lu la pa na ana ke pa na hi tai. Ha hi poi. Ancient Greek saying so Socrates, Plato, Aristotle hoyong chun. Ethics to socio-economic life pa hi anam combine jing hi na hi. Amo ethics are chun. Happiness was the most valuable good human could strive for. Is only the belief that the happiness could not be achieved without players complicated the relationship between ethics and economy at the time. And ethics le economic life players was reconciled by the division of labors where basic human wants such as food, clothing, and shelter were efficiently manufactured, thus maximizing utility. Xenophon Economicus, inspired by Socrates' concept of eudaimonia, aman economic chung say nasun. Since virtue is knowledge, once you understand how to use money and property, where rather than merely acquiring it for personal gain or play use. Anatin nahi. El ancient India ang tinggal lahin. The Rig Veda amoho ho lekabu illustrate an apprehension of economic inequality in chapter 1 stating that the riches of the liberal never waste away, where he who will not give find no comfort in them. It's in about such relation. Generating personal wealth was not considered immoral, but rather hoarding this wealth was considered as sin or immoral. Quran le Sunnah ang sun, it guided uh, Islamic economic practices for centuries. For example, the Quran when riba are sorry are all unjust exploitative gains made in business or trade under Islamic law, as part of its focus on the eradication of interest, that is to prevent financial institutions operating under the guidance of Islamic economic from making monopolistic return. So si control na prevent bonding as modern so economic system paso itik paso ni newin ahi. El Old Testament now sa tingal chun is served as the source of ethics for ancient Jewish economic practices. Example, lowering value of currency was prohibited and were punished. New Testament now founded the relationship between economics and religious literatures. James 1-7 are looking after orphans and widows in the distress and keeping oneself unsupported by the world, make for pure words without stain before God and Father. It's in academic argument that the goal of the economic process is to perfect one's personality. Economy le itik pasu, me personality pasu support the ball in ahi. Okay, introduction also include kita hanlang lab. Now, socio-economic sciences, like theology, apa akinaidan pasu min Christian philosopher ho piti ana understand umon chibel the leh. Socio-economic science also if think scientific discipline ahi because they deal with empirical or contingent truth. That means empirically defensible proposition or truth. Theology deal with revealed eternal truth. That means many of the theological propositions are not empirically defensible. Is theology and socio-economic sciences compatible? Yes, they are highly compatible. Thomas Aquinas, medieval theologian, theology as the queen of the sciences. It is something on the primacy of theology without having to reject secular learnings but inform them. Leslie Newbigin say gospel is relevant to the public wall of truth. Public wall of truth socio-economic or political or whatever, ilaya taksa truth hong so gospel is relevant so na. If the gospel is true, then it is true for all because Christ is Lord of all. The gospel like I say na so yours marks then in a say na soon the primacy or relevance of theology, intellectual endeavors, faith, inform perspective in academic discourse. Our Christian faith should inform the discourses in academic, socio-economic, or whatever. And statistics about tingal 65.4% of Nobel laureate, Nobel Prize in Economics between 1900 to 2001 have identified Christianity as their religious preferences. Itu Christian influence and parts of Christian context, social context sa amohosun. Economic Christian philosophy in economics economic understanding tak sanjiwa Nobel Prize amo pasu about sabi nahi. So if that is the case, two questions arises. How informative can the study of socio-economic be for Christianity? Question number 2, is our understanding of socio-economic informed by our Christianity or Christian faith? Now, Christian ethical principle for socio-economic life. It's telling us we understand some basic terms that we find in the Christian literatures or scriptures. What is community? We are being met, we are beings whose identities are potentiality are fully realized in a community setting. We are not individuals living isolated from the community. Our individuality or personality is found in a communal setting. Every society, primitive or advanced, cannot exist without an economic system or socio-economic system. Therefore, economic system is nature defined by the kind or nature of society defined by the kind of socio-economic system that it has. The worship of God is a communal activity, unlike some Eastern mysticism, which emphasizes the individual can worship God in isolation. Every believer becomes our neighbors and household. We bear mutual responsibility for one another. Market institution facilitate the development of individual talents and reward the persons appropriately. Also, God intended the church to be the primary institution for the spiritual and economic nurturing of the person, not only to get to some other worldly heaven only. Stewardship, everything that is in the universe, in generous and art in particular belong to God. We are accountable to God for our stewardship, use and allocation of our natural resources. Humans are called to be the co-creator with God. We are supposed to be creative, inventive, prudent, foreseeing, and hardworking. Level for human progress is building God's kingdom on earth. And human development and progress should not disturb ecological balances. That is the meaning of stewardship. In the reception of God and will, everyone should have access to the resources necessary for life. Everyone be given opportunity to participate in the economic life of the society. Where is not anathema to God, but rather required for human well-being, is fundamental requirement for charity. However, we should be careful that will can lead to idolatry. Example, the problem of consumerism, excessive consumerism in the developed Western world. For example, no one can claim a perpetual right to property since everything ultimately belongs to God. Therefore, they should be shared in the community. Now, what it takes, what does Christian philosophy or theology thought about or teach about work? To ensure dignity, economic system must be such that no one is jobless. Human beings have both a right and obligation to work. If the right to work is to be meaningful, the economy must be generating God, ideally with multiple possibility of employment and reward. However, there should be no discrimination. If a person is able to work, he or she must do. To point out that God had laziness. God wants us to labor and be creative as we bring the life of the kingdom of God or heaven here on earth. Besides, there has to be no exploitation. What is Christian theology teaching on justice? Fundamentally, we are made in the image of God. God is a God of justice. Recognize and protect the rights, dignity, and the freedom of person, equal treatment of all. We are to side with poor, the weak, and the oppressed. God had economic injustice. Economic injustice, in one way or in many ways, is an effect of sin, greed, indifferences, etc. Frank Buxman, a theologian, has said, there is enough in the world for everyone's need, but not for everyone in greed. Injustice in pricing, fraud, coercion, trigger in the determination of prices. This is highly prevalent in our back at home. Now, what does the Christian theology thought about or teach about the state? Because of sin and weakness of human being, the law of the state is necessary for administration of justice, for protection against aggression and provision of public goods. For the very same reason, concentration of economic power should be diffused through check and balance. Unchecked or unrestrained freedom in economic affairs is undesirable. Christians, like all citizens, have civic responsibilities. But as citizens of God's kingdom, we must not neglect truth, morality, and justice in the public realm. Civil authorities are to be obeyed unless or until they oppose God's law or they allow immoral practices or governance in the society. Now, contextualizing loan contextualizing mythological strategies in our context. Your context also pretty misoni understandable dengan kami tipa tu ahin. Bishop William Temple in asun, Christianity is the most materialistic of all religion. For example, when we look at the Greek religious world or some Eastern mystic religion, material or matter is bad. So we have to denounce them at the end. I like Christianity soon. Everything are created by God and declared to be good. Therefore, Bishop William Temple say, Christianity is the most materialistic of all religion. Materialistic tinggal soon. Paihon, consumerism or Western concept of Christianity, materialistic tinggal soon. Everything is created good by God, metal or non-metal. Therefore, they had to exploit it and use wisely. It accept matter as good. That means we have to effect the redeeming power of the gospel on our material world. Oliver Wendell say, many people's churches are so heavenly minded that they are no earthly good. Ama say na tulay ho ilang Christianity to ito sa ahin. Banggam tu iseva ilahin. Lesit sunga gospel redemptive power pasu economic, politics, social, etc. Isi redemptive power the gospel in those spell also kehimin liba hita nahi. Economic system, rulers and engineers economic system. Yo hi pangpia kuacheng hiwin. Itsa hi Charles son mo punay ni dungo tun share reliance based economy pa hi po sa ding ay nahi. Indigenous focused economic strategies recover our indigenous social economic values and institution. Kukirisas formal lang sun iti a finding ho aga sa tingwa tun. Ipui pa te ga sales no British te communicum tun na sa no so. And had they not been social economic values institution also anahat lo han lang hile communicum tung tabang chu ila ana tingam dingo hin la ana dojo na patum gitingar chun iho Kuki society te ipui pa te yong chun masang lang pe asu modern kangasu modern ong mas kangasu ya society asu social economic values and institutions how ane neve yang chu mutin o min hi it's also iho recovered bol ngai yo hi kan ko long kan ko sokmen for example local talent and skill development especially the poor and the needy isipa hi ho society ngai momong ahin ahi example big local churches lenta ta so in terms of lakana amo ayun ka mo ko tinga local churches tam ta ho ku in terms of 10 lakh 20 lakh so na amo kun they need to identify some kind of socio economic opportunities explorable ngai yo ahin not only for their local church member but also for society at large. It's akin kamu local tinggal lesson. Big local churches shoulder the responsibilities of being socio-economic guardians of remote villages. Tinghang ko chong nang mo ko mon. Socio-economic guardian na apan tinga yo ahin. For example, they can identify 5 youths every year, providing them capital support to to start big business venture. If 100 big local churches do this, they can bring economic upliftment to 500 families this year. And their tithes will come back to their respective churches and hence the return or economic dividend for the churches. Healthy means of livelihood. Causes for taking up illegal cultivation. Wala iti public cultivation panam itinga chun. Charles also economic calling pa amo mission calling anakila to ham tiong hi year te hin hi. Angke pat dan so story za le. For example, lack of market of make buyers of their products if cultivating in unfavorable years. It's also a course things also could on my hand. As a solutions from meeting a chun, public cultivation also hard in the also. Iho society are ema home and society are local economic expert or social expert also or agricultural scientists also going in also alternative line also about ngai so collaborative work ngai just and social economic expert all give those villagers interest-free loan to farmers or build cold storage facilities also sa pila isi atil azu ba so it's cold storage facilities also akoi teo hi cold storage facility tingal in terms of 10 lakh 20 lakhs so hobung hoding azu the same le habe selo hi nahi example big local churches they can burden the responsibilities education and hospital as mission ta ihon mission iti tingola hin agaw mang tai ho se ku chiku na la hin la Christian church history tingal chun education hospital pa hi amahon amo calling asu anaki la hin what hospices di ho vel ahin elo le kan third fourth century la vela prosecutor khang layang chu eba tingal chun hospital education also hospital also okay but not Christian context on ahin ahin kin kamudana hi education hospital is almost neglected by our churches. It's penny why do our churches neglected this education hospital? Why can't they see education hospital as the mission calling? Tisu kemamudana hi I think something is lacking in the churches now. They should involve medical doctors to run church established hospital. Theologian MTH similar theologian PhD simkat sun hospital run aboli thelo hin ahi. Yeah, so it's like feel like expert ho to hospital reporting on run sangai hin ahi. Collaborate with already established Christian hospital and colleges or university. Supposing hospital katsu teka banga boarding tingal chun. Tu like nga halo hi la hin ahi. Christian hospital permanent hospital omen. Tamta omen abroad India tamta omen amot collaboration about it hin amot expertise or resources share about it hin it's also a hingai hi ele it's nothing also ipiham just also resource to ekat ngayo ahin it's I think they support theologian who have PhD in secular academic to run church established educational institution. Teka banga su hobung katsun school or college boarding thing ala chun MTH theology simple tengai lo hila hin hi. It's also height fiha theologian hong su sociology education economics ta vela su theology PhD bo sangai sahi private university tam ta tai so la PhD bo sa hi lekin kemudian ahi in society ahi we always focus on sending missionaries na it's pen hi iba zat ngayo hin ya su iho la mission tam ta hi bote omen it's ahi withdraw half of our missionary na employ them as pastors evangelists come teachers in school as mitam ta importa when hong tam ta borta in adequately remunerated them or pay them and they are to serve as agent of social reformers in the society. Hobung hoyong chun They can also survey and record socioeconomic conditions of its members or society at large. And they can also establish researching grant 7 to 10 lakhs per annum, use local economic expert, example, professors or lecturers that we have in universities to study the causes of poverty or social issues in society and evolve strategies to address them. Some invest vào ngay hi. Also hi let some head them in order to make effective so the choices socio-economically, there are some theological barriers teaching that we should shun all overcome. Example, art, a heaven art complete dichotomy. This is characteristics of equiparianisms or deisms of Greek philosophy. Also heaven art he however, in Christianity, heaven and art are intersect and interlock. For example, temple theology. Temple in the ancient Judaism Israel, heaven art myth represent microcosmism. Heaven and art itikan also. Ita hi interlock ahi intersect ahi. Iti asu Greek philosophy hin ho la hi influence hin bo la hin. Cepat itu like ngahi, we should try to re-evaluate temple theology hi quite achieving ngahi nahi. Now, modeling our missiological strategies on the Western ones. Pa iho hubung tinggal hin. Ahinay, Western churches also iho la hi church funding ahin bolo hi nahi. Ila to hi connections collaborations umjing hi nahi. Ahin head ng ukhatsu America lang ta to hoy lang ta theology hong ho to amhon mission konseng of pa iho ala dinga relevant lo tam ta o mahin western wala ong theology ki kher tam ta o mahin chong hi ne ka ba ngai Western Christian society ho socio economically developed hi nahi yes mo hin amo resources su India ta thawa country ta mono nga missionary support about here in ahi ahin la iho context also western missionary mission model pazo complete task kijang thelo hin ahi because we are socio economically backward economically backward here socio economic issues tamta in here so address evolve focus primary iho thing so hin ahi yes western model mission model hi never cut hi tha critic what hi ngai hi so like on soul body Dualism pahi ha Japan hi philosophy sinlos in heading o ahin Greek philosophy hi bo ichi Christian philosophy hi point Judeo-Christian philosophy point Judeo-Christian na chu integrated concepts of human personality ahin soul body ki kando ahin ahin so le theology academic hi on dichotomy equivalent however when we look at church history or Christian the history of Christian theology or philosophy, theology and academic or secular are never separated completely. Now, in our context, we can say that we should share or collaborate expert in different fields, theology as well as secular. Interactions jingai hinahi. Uncritical reception of anything Western. Western on part ihon mo ta san jingoben. Ichipen hi di lo hila hinahi. We should try to somehow take a position that Western churches on itobong hi tunas ina cho hi iho context to hin iba tingal hin. Akitu sa boy yung susay nga hin. Capitalism and modernistic individualistic values as compatible with Christianity just because it has some historical connection with it. Ekaw nga Western world to like nga very individualistic ahitawin. Iti hi amo a philosophy Western philosophy tradition so hinantin. Il amo ding nga so socio-economically as once ahitawin individualistic hizong le kolo hila hi binahi. Ay amo socio-economic framework ku but tingal kun they are highly public in nature ahin. amo individualistic hisong le ho chu amo individualistic hisong le a framework parts to very social very public in nature ahin ichi ihon iga va zamawa aji khi dan pa chu tu zam ngai hi char society complete dichotomy trong hi char society ati khane ti pa gong hi iba tingal hin dialo hil ahin ahin ele it's also theological battle overcome involving also ahin but awana theological positions to promote to ni hola gong hom penta indigenous theology enrich the world of Christianity in particular and religion in general with our indigenous religious view iho ipu party ho jong hi tamta religious values human values social values social economic value tamta om ichong hi hon piti la hin world Christianity religion in general like promote advertise about hedung am ti yong hi ngai hi a theological classic book kan sim na Alistair McGrath Oxford University aman classic book kan ji in it's akin paragraph kana aman na sina sun Puritan movement America anachi laya so it's like indigenous mi hotun indigenous theology develop anabology in John it's engam kan ama society to indigenous society host to it's engam kan in associate at the end nahi aman to now kan aga highlight hin aman his indigenous theology important about dan pas paragraph kana aga ni so kaga belle tiong sun kalung dong tho hin nahi It's indigenous theology pas am hoyong sun contribute about here the pas mo do hin nahi liberation theology socio-economic conditions of life of society social division economic partners demand that we promote it ika tingala hin Christianity wala hin tingala hin Latin American honsong ichi hi aha chi piwin ahin la critic chutam tam jong le ichong hi iho context adinga chu very very important western churches so in ipp say yong le liberal theology ho adinga very very important hi teka banga su Psalm 22 ko bala no temple theology or liberation ai lo le liberation theology to muti hin justice in social economic song ku Psalm 22 ham kan ku ki ha mu hin ai chule theological position ham promote evolving one kada ikat on so a coherence view of eschatology one that is historically grounded and realistic not escapist platonic one which make us insensitive to the real world situation or issues it's a eschatology getting ala hin ninung lang or we can say ultimate destiny of humanity or universes it's by 19th century khanga hong ki pan theology ho iha chi piwin kam wen it's hi philosophically historically theologically hi chong hi thawa ngayo hi na hin chong hi talks ke chu pa hi saying ati thima hin hi chong le chong hi ne khat hi reflect was ngai hin 19th century theology tradition dan na lai ding ham question ka hin hin it's Christian theology or philosophy tinga la hin feudal hi mitam a bol hi tan Greek element Greek worldview ti ho hi neo cut feudal bo jang ngai hi la public theologian or public theologian promote wa ngai hi the church produce theologian who are public intellectual who can give a rational view on social economic political issues facing society philosophical theology to ihon evolve pa ba tinga la hin alang pia seminary India amo hi ba tinga la evangelical seminary worldwide ba tinga la hin philosophical theology he from harvest ha bol be se po wi jong le when you are trying to present your Christian faith in the public intellectual or in the intellectual space we need a philosophical theology it's only ho bung hon how focus bol ngai hi na hi expert in a way se bol ka mo na hi So let science and Christian religion studies. Science Christian religion studies on he nếu Phật develop vào ngay có cả sao vào ngay hi. Tu ở đây na chỉ số cái sẽ hiện. But in say lang quite can say lang Abraham Kuyper, New Calvinist theologian and former Prime Minister of Netherlands ở say na sun. There is not a school in the whole domain of our human existence, our which Christ, who is the sovereign over all, does not say mine. Aman say na sun. In Cuba, let's inquire treasury, economy, social, whatever economic sa now he. Pakay sun. Kaya ay poy at yelo umpoy tinahin ahin. At say na sun. Tunin ko akin. Kan say pa kum ditingan sun. As a philosopher usually do in this talk, I as a philosopher student of enthusiasm initiate a talk or a problem so that for the rest of you to take up and work on it. Therefore, in this talk, my job is to talk about the basic philosophical or theological foundation, and then go on to talk about the theological barrier that our local ecclesiology or charges to overcome, and theological position that they have to promote if they are to be socio-economically effective. Itu kay part tante.
Kipao min okay chu ka hiding hi poen hela lulunin hin ngan sein hin ngan se dung je chun kenjong azo kamen ai chi Q&A session he kain la ding he aging se su ju pi ha okay ko ki zat ya okay kipao min lena konin ichi topic ngita ten topic poimota adi secular perspective akona opinion elo election observation ang the hi changi ham khana e hola ayong kitil khona thei ta chu aumin chuting le ama paper presentation hian lang ama discussion akona iphat chumpi du yon chu kata sanin ahin Q&A hingut masangu chuteng le koitabang lungel sei khom theina thudo nom ni umai ha le chat box ayong chun in koi theu hin hichi ingki got na diu chun kenjong neu khat share ka hin bol nomin hichi ka hin share ding chu argument ong cho hidi pun ahin kon khana dinga chu ka head the confused na thei ta ta yong chu hu ding ahin hichi Christian theology kiti na Christian theology iti teng le chun ahangpi achun Christian theology hi typology elo le four types of theology in ki homin iti four types of theology ki hop chu iti ga he thei ding ham achom lam pena se ding achun khana chu hele chun biblical theology in ani na achun historical theology in athum na chun systematic ahilo le chun dogmatic theology in ali na chun practical theology ti hi abai lam ta teng le he thei do la chi se hi tuni tu jana paper present ki bol cho hele chun hang pi a cho systematic theology teng le dogmatic theology teng le practical theology hi chi te ni ki ka a cho hung hi kha a hi in teng le Christian theology ti ki teng le hin a he yong di hin ga hil chet be the na chu phamiti a lechon present bolpan lenin jong hin satan Christian theology ti ki teng le hin Christian theology sunga hin tampi a umin it's all a chon aman khat a hin min pha point khat liberation theology adi di Latin America pana hong ki pan hin teng le liberation theology sung mama ang chon Marxist theology yong umin teng le liberation theology se hello Christian theology aba kaya khat chu le chon India teng le Southeast Asian context a se ding chon subaltern theology umin it is subaltern theology sunga chun Dalit theology omen, tribal theology omen, feminist theology omen, womenist theology omen, child theology omen. Ta hi aba hi Christian theology hi ke hom hian hin. Ji chun Christian theology iti ten le chun hang pi a chu ga het thi dola cha chum jep hung hi ka in. Aya tunia paper present ki bol chu le chun Christian ethics lampang hi aha focus in. Tengle ani ne chun focus na Christian ethics iti ki tengle chun hang pi a chu moral theology na moral theology iti tengle chun it is a multifaceted ethical system chungi kha he ichi hang pi a chu adi dia Christian theology chu iti eimata in het heading ham eimata in thodo heading ham ti pa chu Christian ethics he ye chun them khat Christian ethics to a Christian theology a ki hit na yong cho na ai chi chu lang pang chu ha focus po hitin chi chu neo khat a hesa ho ten la hello lai ho ten a hethil jep lo ho dinga cho gaga sei mai mai hin tun Q&A part in lu bitin koi tabang thudo nom nei no mau ma a hi a le chun a voice elo le video ayong cho nen do the hin ten le chat box ayong cho thudo nei the he ti pa cho khen se he para ke honge koi do nom do the he philosophy lang pang yang do the science and religion lang yang do the church administration lang an to kha je ang cho chilang yong cho do the he het nom jo se ale dang ho ti got la lai diung ka ta sanin tam ta an do diu yong cho ta san o min ichi paper present bol pan ahin se hola khat chu ken rong ka ga pom khat o min adi di in philosophical theology lang a chaina a chon o khat bo chom chan bo ahin se in them khat sau je manin se pi be the diu ham philosophical theology cho
Western philosophy sim zo sin het di mo hin. First century khanga yong su la tingala. Charles Isus tam ta anu mo hin. Ali Charles contact la tingala. Greek philosophy or Christian faith. It's all misunderstanding tam ta anu mo hin na. Tekap ngasu Arianism's heretic di Gnosticism, Agnosticism ngon Christian teaching tam ta influence na bola hin. Hele it's like that pem diting ala chun. Ali Charles that thing ala. Ichi philosophy akan dan suna. Akan dan su lang down sun philosophy Ali Charles leader homes philosophy and theory also they can navigate through which a teaching can be acceptable in Christianity or which are not acceptable in Christianity. So anabol theo hin na. Ele iti chu hin. Ta su tekap nga Paul theological thing ala chun. Paul is highly grounded in Jewish philosophy and Jewish theology and Greek philosophy and Greek theology. Religious problem mo ay taan hen do hin. It dong chi in now Middle Ages kang layang sa tingala hin. Or let's say before Middle Ages, Saint Augustine house iba tingala chun. He used Platonic philosophy to explicate his Christian philosophy or Christian teaching. Hele ông chỉ kinin ta Saint Aquinas hỏi dòng chun Aristotle philosophy to among science Christianity to theology philosophy to enrich and bol ahin. Ông chỉ kinin ahile ta John Calvin kiti holoi heading ohin Abraham Kuyper kiti holoi amol reform philosophy and perkin ohin itu tinggal ahin akan dan patum tinggal chun head na kiti chu head dong khat chu society yo si hin world view and philosophy and isu ke ahin ele ichi world view philosophy hong chu human values social values economic values tam ta om hin itu chu Christianity atau compatible hi nahi ele iti ya chu hitawang ho chu man chai bitil hin Christianity a philosophy or theology and this board him yong chu is Christian theological or philosophical tradition at hung chi pe ahin to academic for example in the Western University of teaching alachun religious and theological studies is hot department ho tinggal alachun one who is to study any theology Christianity Jewish Judaism Islam Hinduism EPP hile firstly they have proper backgrounds in philosophy na isu ngai hin ele academic context ong ti ding ala itong chu philosophy pa chu hung ngai hin ya su itabong chu ahi le to te ka nga somewhere in the first decade of the 20th century so religious studies academically so somehow malign and nahi with the influences of positivism or poetry or whatever naturalisms ele to ay tingala hin aben platinga ho na iba tingala amo hin itengem kana hi academic or intellectual space hi Christian thought or worldview hi pai ta promote abolo hi nahi election academic context ng titingal chun Christian ta non Christian ta atheist ta hom hin elai ta su Christian theology wo se su present na bor thelo hi nahi elai philosophical argument to defend your Christian faith so hungai hin echai amo hin ahin amo na to na ko nai itengem kana religion not only Christianity respectable academic discipline kana home te hi nahi icha hi a philosophical theology or Christian philosophy itingal chun ichi a philosophy secular philosophy dang in Christianity itila hin negotiate itila hin that ka tu thi ham di ho su hung hi hin about to supposing scientific philosophy and Christianity got itingal chun achi kon ding dan hong hi ding hin Chule, it's in Navana chun. Suppose if we study many of the socio-economic books, suppose Joseph Stiglitz, Nobel Prize in Economics, Amartya Sen, chun. Economic philosophy or social philosophy, as you say, tingal le Christianity ading ahi. Zil do fi tam taom hin. Christian fact do compatible hi. Chi kom thi tam taom hin. Ichong hi sim zat ngai hin. Het zat ngai hi. Ipa chu ho going expose ini wala chun iho patin ho dan no chengam kana chu enrich about hi ipa chu kise hi
paume so chat box hin kha omen asai chu ka voice le video akiza theipon in type jeng taleng Christian ta sandana Christian ta sandana faith le science proof of concept hi kikal contradiction thei de ham Christian ta sandana faith le science hi contradict thei de ham science le religion hi achom choma koya pha ahi dem ti he thudo khan he chỉ ahin dong he le sopi as sang thang
Itu tu su kat baik tabang hai ta criminal elo le box hai ta good te hin na. That is science and Christian faith conflict pa hi ông cái bệnh này hi nai cha bo hin. Kat baik yang su on Britain le di network ten box e ko yowin. Kana say tay. Science and Christian faith hi article nahi lo hi la hi nahi. For example, science iti tingal sun it explore the created reality ahin na. The truth about this created reality, natural law or natural mechanism. It's all on to patin si mahin na. Ele Christian faith iti tingal sun eternal truth ahin. Suppose salvation of the human person or redemptive work of Christ in this world. Itu hin. Itu teni tu domain ni kesai terihan lang le. Tu truth ahin. Tu tak scientific truth yang tu truth ahin. Christian truth yang tu truth ahin. Truth the truth tu jikal telo ahin na. Because ani ta asu truth ahin le pathin si mahi. Every truth also every truth are created by God again. Logical truth, ethical truth, or whatever. But he now kung ko na hin. Yeah, so through the truth so chikar thelo hin. Yeah, so scientific truth le Christian truth so ani ni apathina ko na hin. Yeah, so mani so chi khom thi a hin. So le head mo khat so isi te ka nga young art pressionist ti hong tam tam iso ong ke nahi nai chai bo hin heading kat so ele it depend upon hermeneutics Genesis so EPT interpret na bolam so what kind of hermeneutic that do you use the pounds ke depend kit ahin yeah so kan senum pensu example scientific revolution of igaba tingal chun it developed in the Christian wall ahin na Christian faith ya ang chu ichangam kana chu science promote kung hi ahin ahi it's like khanga chu scientific revolution khanga 67th century lai chu they believe in the imago day and you have to slice cut niam cut chu kasok pan like kilomin imago day kita pa thing we are created in the image of God. Therefore, we cannot prove both scientific truth and biblical truth. It's also another sanjiva to human has this cognitive capacity to know the truth about not only the revealed truth of the scripture, but also truth about the world that we know through scientific method. It's also modern science on he Christian context also develop on he ele pola Hinduism context elo le Islamic context elo le Chinese context amo philosophy asong kuno tiram itinga chun iti Christian faith Christian principle ho chu tamta science promote about ya su ita ko na hong context ahin hong ki develop ahin it's also one of the heritage of Christianity ahin ya su science the Christian tu hi Christian faith aja kana lo hi lahi ipas ne kat say ding tam ta say ding men it's also ha tu ne say ding also bui na yong le aja kal bui both are truth created by God ahi
me adong la lai da ham trong khát ga nga be the hi win it is science and religion at can supplement kind bonomin khat so hi le Albert Einstein in a say science without religion is lame science without religion is lame and religion without science is blind at the end yeah chun science le religion hi hang pi a chu kilhan home jing the he khen thelo a scholar tampi scientist and la philosopher tampi in khending go jong le hi chan ge ham khatna wang hi khen thelo na hi he adi de achu ga sei thei dinga chon achomlam pen achon biblical literalism chungchang hen ga ke sele hangpi achu biblical hi bible hi literal interpretation in bol kha hi ade chon a scripture a text sa ke sun pa hi ake hezi pon adi de achu pathin thu a hi ti achu kila a ke ta san jing choi ipija a ke ta san ham ti le chon inewa pa na ipi ipu inu pa teng le min hin sei pi so ke mi a ko na society a ko na chu ki he a bible hi pathin thu a hi ti achu ke ta san jing he je achu mi kon khana dinga chu bible to science hi akitu thei poi ti ang hi sei thi tampi he ahiya Genesis chapter Genesis bung khat chang khat le chang ni tu ga sima hi ale chun gap theory cho na scientific anthropologists and all archaeologists so say ding ya cho Genesis account hu hin la hi ale chun the earth is about 7,000 million years old kiti cho 7,000 million years old hi ale chun ai scientists or discovery archaeologists or discoveries or vet ken na he alechon museum ho banga ichi alechon dinosaur gu ho fossils of kimukicho dinosaur fossils ho bang ho billions of years ang ke sei kicho ai alechon narrative ho bang cho literal interpretation a chi la he alechon gap theory pa chu ke hello cho Genesis bung khat chang khat le chang ni ke ka ho gap theory ahia ga he thei pe na cho hi lechon a bible sungu in sima ahia a lechon Lucifer thu hi ki sei ji cho Lucifer thu ki sei ji ahia Lucifer hi pathi van ga ma ko na pathi nen ai no la hi ki ti cho iti phat hi di ham na iti phat de ham ya cho science le religion expert lang ho sei da na chon all earth creation is a woman ting le young earth creation is a woman it cho cho neo khat ga ve on kom leo ga le thia head by lam ta khat cho he ting le philosopher khat I mean chu Ian G Barber kiti in ama hin for model api in model li chu pe ham ti le chon khat na chu conflict model hi in it's a chu conflict model chun Christian ta san to science conflict in jing ati cho ani na chu le chun independent models science independent thana ten religion hi acham chama tha ani ne a hi ta hi independent ta abana athum na cho he le dialogue model cho le chon science a contribution chi pe ham religion chi pe ham injo Lenin and sema banga to western scientific understanding ho bang si atam zo hi Christian biblical understanding apona so unki pancho a development process na Christian theology apona so all along ke pancho adi di Galileo ten le Copernicus ho thusim ho bang chi ga na le science is o ai wanga to Galileo le Copernicus ho theory chi pe ham ti ale chon khanen na sei cho leisit hi alaya in a planet jo se hin leisit hi avel kol hi ti cho khat cho hele chon ai point ni sa hi alaya in planet jo se hin ta hi ni sa cho avel kol hi chi theories tam pi cho te le chi se cho hilo flat earth theory yo cho it's a theory tam pi ho hi iga na hi ale chon science le religion hi kikal lo ti di he at li na point li na say cho election integration model che ti teng lechon science jong religion jong ani ni a hi chi khom ngai a chi khom lo a hi a lechon enjoy say ma bawa Einstein in say science without religion is lame and religion without science is blind ati bang che example khat chunga say kit leng Exodus even Moses in Israel mi te an puya tuipi san agal kai pi ho bang che na hi ale chun bible a ki sun cho pathin thu cho pathin thahat na pathin thilbol the na ki bol hai cho ai wanga cho iti hung do the ham ti pa cho na I chilang pang cho science in neo kha cho whole ji he ye chun Exodus decoded ki ti ho YouTube me o maintain chi ga avel le han adi dia 10 plek ho bang go iti hung chi tha ham afli ma cho na hi ale chun minute som langa ka 10 plek cho ki chai cho hi wanga chu phatte chai ga agela hi ale chun thosi ho bang upho ho bang chu a season dung ju ya chu hung chi chu ichi 10 black ho chu thakhat sunga chu hilo bi chu aha akuma chu ichi 10 black chu anu umai the chu ya chu literal interpretation biblical literal understanding ibol paw hi neo khat i khelu nga e ti yong chu ga ase to nomin tengle ichan chun nga inga adu tam hello le chan phadi hon la lai du ham epa
adong diam lo lang ma thai ta chuna
adong ding ta lo wa hi ale chun ichan chun ngau hitin ki pa omen lenin jong lungel ngai to na tampi a hin sein a discussion ini na ho yong chun confusion jong umai thei a he theme thei ta jong ding a hi in ta san omen tun ki pa thu sein le lena dinga taw na hin nei sa ding ka pa Dr. S jong loi phat kan pe
som group channa hangdong lam hil webinar in the ball thei ki pam le jingen aden issue hi akhang to kitu aphat to kitu hangdong hon angai cha thil tam pi ho loi hi bad nei cha hin sei ji wi tun la jong chu ki chitabang to chun kisaya ingai cha nu kho khat idingai ta sanji wa chu ichilang pang chu sei dinga cha pau ti de ham e ding chun son khulen mate lu ne nan tim le tanu ta chan ain sein a theology monga chu iti sei da ma chu sangta Bible sim na langa thilo wi jong le aman iti say da secular perspective an pu do holoi chu very reasonable ta tampi yong chome itiam khana chu counter ball na langwang chu hilowin itiam khat chi vet le sei to ding chu tampi yong hum ki chi aje chu ethical lampang thima ha chi ting le chun culture te jong pi hum ki lo chon dan khan dan o to hung ha chi form ji ehola yet can thelu ade Richard Neighboring culture le Christ chung chang thu aji hot bang yong khu phata study in bola hin sei tu ding cho hung la ko tam ji je chu event da no hi sacred to secular holoi ho na ai hi thieng le bu ki hena ki mat thelu da nai gel ho thil tam pi holoi akhang po a chu iti sei to reconcile bol de ham ti ho tam pi hung do ji apale jengin lungel provoke tam pi hin bol pi chu ki pam ka sain aden lu nam lo je chun ka chapa seimin chunin pate chan an lam kai kin nei le hil tam pi an be lamin ki pam ka sain ama jong hi tu pe na chu Bible College mi hilahin chule religion doctor tha liu wa hin chai ta bang hi ji chun lungel tam pi hin pu do loyong chu aphale jing ade Christian religion hi ti religion hi che jong de Bible College ko na religion department hi ji chu namasanga thil tam pi en chai sa ho ta in su to ai hi lo chu nani hon jonga ki pa thu ka phongin tan ka san chule ahung ho loi bang chun yet thei be se lo diu ka ta san kum jong atamin je chu akipat na lang chu English tampi to an sei thau le a sei danu chu sangta ei puyo hi je chun izamati lo le ako ho le ngai tu ho chu no hom ge la hung su do do pai om tam din ka ge hi jong le thil tha khat khang dong hon secular perspective a chu Christianity hi Christian hiu le chun le se na ong chui so chat pi wa wan ga mau chui so chat pi ngai aban gam keu se kine ma ale se na chu I ma cha mu lo ding ba ngai gel pau yo hi ta sa so chat na jong hi thagau so chat na jong hi chi hi Hebrew ten Jews ten Salom atiu ku a well being ti na hi a thagau keu hi pon ta sa keu pon lung thim la hin na pum pi hope so ke hi ja chu I Christian ta san pau hi a bon chang ke ya phat chum na the hi te na ding lung ge la chu se khom hi tin lau hi tin thanom te na ban te on na pam kin ho te ti chu ka hin tim nom ki do hin tu ni la a tu se ai pan piu sun khulin mate hin chula lam ka ya hin pat piu sei min chu na hin ki pa me thano me chula pang kho mo zu si jong dam thei pat thei na changun lang aban nong na thanom tan pang kin ho ti ta ka hin ti mo he chule jing ni la teng le hin Dr. Hem Kumang mamang I khat Silonga KWS Happy Valley lama pasara pang hin aman pathin thua holim nei nei pi di hin cha jong chu thanom ta pang ding na ki ku kin hoite tia ka in tiam nei ve ken taw na hin mang ka te taw hoite ka ki pa ve pathin nang man hi chi khangdong lamhil a ho na la ya khangdong ho ki hilowa mi tampi thu pha hil thei dinga nei bol do sa wa tu ni chan ge jong som gu phin na ki mang cha khom theya ka om je un ka ki pan min lo pi ka thangwa hi I chi ta bang phal le ni khuwa hi khangdong tam pin jong a het na ho pu do a loi gol hello tam pi ho le nu la pa hello tam pi ho hil theya na koi je jong ka ki pan min lo pi ka thangwa tu ni ni la in jong pathin ka cha pau son khule na hin a het na athip na ho in pu do a mi ho het thei dinga in ta lang nang man phat thei boin lang so le ma jong het na chi na pe ho khununga nam pi kho na le ho bunga dinga mang cha theya phat thei na bu a course song pata cha chai thei na ding in ki thu pin tia ka taw pi hi so banin a hin lam ka ya thang min lu na hin chule sei min chu na hin pathin nang man ana to thil bol na wam pin lang ki thu pin lang a sa naw chana pan pi a dam thei patte na nei wa khunung chan ge a jong kine piam na ho pathin thil tam pi to do na le thu pha tam pi po do na thil pha tam pi po do na le thu pha tam pi sei do na man thei na devin en na chi na jong pidinga ka taw pi hi tu ni la hung kai khom ho jo se jong nang man phat thei boin lang athungai ho hi het na ta ba nei wa phat chom na nei wa kan tu pi na nei na devin jong phat thei boin ta ka taw hi so le pathin khunung chan ge hin ngai di ho gen jong phat thei boin ta ka taw jing tha ting la kai khom ka nei ni hin cho jong thanom ta pang thei ding in ong kai ho jo se dam thei phat thei na pi a ki thu pi che ding ngai chan ka taw he I zo se bol the pathin nang ma kain ko un hap ta lung ken jong nei pui ki run la ei ching hoi ki run da min ei pui le jing un ka to ka tham la wa nang ma pang jing in pia ka pha do chai na ade a ka so pi ho cha te ho thu se ai pan pi ho zo se dinga na pat thei bo nge a changa chei ngai lu beng jing ka pa kai Jesus Christ a mena ka ta hi amen ki pa me dam sel chiun